Suraramdarirorarireia, surarendelneldo. Suraramdarirorarireia, surarendelneldo. Surarenderoldeo, hey, hey, yo. Surareldeo, hey, yo. Surarelde. Asuraramdarirorarereia, surarelnelneldo. Asuraramdarirorarereia, surarelnelneldo. Surarelneroldeo, hey, hey, yo. Suraruldeo, hey, yo. Surarulde. Welcome. I guess you've come to hear the tale of the first story about how the world began. Well, before the beginning, there was nothing but heat and cold. In the north lay Nibelheim, a realm of frost and fog, and in the south lay Muspelheim, a boiling sea of flames. And between these two realms there was an endless, bottomless abyss called Ginnungagap, a crack in reality between light and darkness. This is where life first began. Nibelheim shaped the ice to this gigantic form, humongous shape, and Muspelheim heated it and gave it the first spark of life. And so awoke the first creature that ever lived. The largest, the biggest of all giants that have ever breathed, that have ever lived. This giant took the name of Ymir, and it was of both sexes. Now Ymir, he had the very first, the original spark of life. And life is chaos. Life seeks to live, to multiply, to evolve, to change. Life is chaos. Order is what gives it meaning. Now, when Ymir first awoke, and he drew his first breath, the very first breath of the very first living creature, and when he exhaled, Nibelheim frosted it, and Muspelheim heated it. So when the very first drops of the very first breath of the very first creature fell to the ground, another creature came to life. A huge and mighty cow named Audhumla. And luckily for Ymir that she came to life, because that's how Ymir fed. 4 wild rivers of milk ran from her mountainous teats. Now, the world was at peace with just these 2 living creatures, but alas, it would not last. Audhumla needed nourishment too, so she started to lick a giant frost-covered salty rock. Now during the first day, from the top of the stone there suddenly appeared hair. And on the second day she continued to lick, and a head appeared. And on the third day she had licked the entire rock, and the body appeared as well. This was a powerful and beautiful man named Bure. He was the ancestor of our gods. Now, I said that Ymir had the original spark of life. And that is true, because that spark of life made him, it made him create more life, because life seeks to live. So one night, his legs mated with each other and gave birth to a six-headed son named Thrudgelmir. This would be the ancestor of the mighty Jotuns, the mortal enemies of the gods. You might know them as the frost giants, but that is wrong. They are called Jotuns. Also, during the very same night, Ymir started to sweat something fierce, and from his left armpit there grew a male and a female creature. Their names are sadly lost to the shadows of the past. But I suspect that this female creature mated with the male creature, with Thrudgelmir, and with Bure. It is the only way to explain how Thrudgelmir and Bure gained wives, children, and grandchildren. And it wasn't long before that they had children and grandchildren. And so Odin was born as the grandchild of Bure and Bestla, along with his brothers Vilje and Ve. Now the Jotuns multiplied much more quickly than the Aesir, the gods. And they were such fierce and chaotic creatures that the first realm was in chaos. So Odin and his brother rebelled. They started fighting against Ymir and his kin. The very first battle against the very first living creature. A fierce battle must have been indeed, because flesh was torn and blood was freed. Odin and his brothers won that battle. Now when they finally killed Ymir, his chest opened up and a huge tidal wave of blood flooded the lands and drowned most of the Jotuns, except two that fled into the fog and hid. All other Jotuns hails from them. And it's also said that Audhumla, the mighty cow, also perished during this. It's suspected that she was taken by the tidal wave of blood and flushed down into Ginnungagap, the endless abyss, because nobody has ever heard or seen from her since. Odin and his brothers, they dragged the body of Ymir down into Ginnungagap, the endless abyss, and they closed it off, so they used Ymir's body as kind of a lid. And his flesh became earth, his blood became oceans, his bones became mountains, and his teeth became rocks. His hair became trees and grass. They took his big curved skull and turned it into the sky, the firmament, the sky dome. And they stole sparks from Muspelheim and threw into the sky. And these in turn became the sun, the moon, and the stars we see above us. And his brain they scattered across the firmament, and they became clouds. And so our world was born from the chaotic original life spark of the very first creature that ever lived. Now, from the dead body of Ymir, there started to crawl forth maggots. Well, they look like maggots at least. Because Ymir's body still contained the original spark of life. Now these, in turn, grew and evolved into what we now know as the dwarves. The gods chose 4 of them to help to hold the sky up so it doesn't fall down. And they called these 4 Easter, Wester, Norther, and Souther. Some while after this was done, the 3 gods found themselves walking along the brand new ocean, along the beach. Odin and Vilja and Ve suddenly spotted these 2 big, beautiful logs washed up on shore. And they could see that it resembled them somehow. It resembled it was in their likeness. They could also sense the spark of life in them, and they started to carve these 2 logs into 2 creatures that looked like themselves. And they called the male creature for Usk, and they called the female creature for Embla. And so, man was born. Usk and Embla are your ancestors.